All right. This is the Zombie Runner module from the Unity 3D class that is found on udemy.com or udemy.com. I'm not sure how they pronounce that. That is created by Gamedev.tv. Probably, I'm sure the class is also available on their site directly, which is probably Gamedev.tv. So this is probably about halfway through that module, where I had to pause it to focus on some other projects, and just was never able to come back to it. I paused it probably in September of this year, 2021. I'm recording this in December of 2021, and have not yet had a chance to come back to it. But in creating this channel, I uploaded some footage from other modules and just kind of offhandedly titled it Watch Me Learn Unity, and really just intended to upload those videos to get a feel just for, a quick feel for the YouTube studio and just, how do you upload things, how do you title them, how do you add them to playlists, whatever. But that playlist title is basically a lie. Like, you're not watching me learn Unity. You are there's 4 or 5 gameplay clips from this class particularly. But one of the things that I wanted to do at some point, and this isn't it yet, but I wanted to probably review or in some way like kind of do a roundup of the class and modules maybe. I don't know whether that would be like just a straight review or perhaps something more like something akin to a Let's Play where like I wouldn't broadcast the class content, but maybe do a roundup at the end of every module or do some put together some clips of just like solving problems and like talking about stuff that happens in the class, which might be the most doable thing, because if I come back to this, I'm gonna have to just start over, even if it's doing this stuff on 1.5 times speed, watching those videos. It's been sufficiently long enough that I could probably do with a brush up on every single piece of the class. But so this is the last module called Zombie Runner, which is kind of bittersweet. It is I would say conceptually, it's honestly the only conceptually 3D thing you do in that class. Every other module, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, could easily be conceptually 3D, and some are just 2D. Some are blatantly just 2D games, but you're using the 3D aspects of the Unity engine. But this is easily arguably a 3D game. And the game, as the instructor intends it or designs it, is a sort of open world, small map zombie shooter, where you have like weapon swapping and ammo count and pickups for health and pickups for ammo, and enemies with an AI and an aggro state and a calm state and a searching state and that kind of thing. And so you learn that stuff, and that's really great. It's the last module, as it is technically out of date, and they mark it as such in their class. They say that it's old content, and I don't know when or if the 3D classes are going to get updated. They did recently update the 2D class, which I haven't taken yet, but with my thoughts on the 3D class and having skimmed through the 2D class, which I do own, it seemed like it was going to have some of the same problems that I have with the 3D class, that it looks like they have addressed a lot of them. The update really seems to have the 2D class, each module you seem to be really making some really, if not classic, then clearly conceptually two-dimensional games. But this is, as I said, it's old content, so I think the coursework is for Unity 2020.1, I think, overall, and this is probably 2017 or 2019. Not this Unity on my screen, but the Unity that the instructor is using, the version of Unity the instructor is using to make the game. So there's like a bunch of little things that are out of date, and Unity themselves has changed how they handle character controllers now, pretty not drastically, but there's some pretty steep differences between what's taught in this class, even with the quote unquote up to date content that makes it disappointing is not the right word, but I'm interested to see if they update this. So I got about halfway through this, and I had to pause to work on some other projects, and have not come back to pick it up yet. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to play through this, then I'll break and look at some of the overview of it, and just kind of talk a little bit about what I recall from what we learned in the class, and like how some of this stuff works. The whole thing at this stage is really prototype, which was part of the class, is to make like super prototypey stuff, which is actually, again, somewhat unfortunately, in the very last module, the first time that concept of game design is being put forth, where before making a finished product, before making what the design is going to be, we're going to make a prototype and tweak the gameplay elements first, which, quite frankly, in my opinion, just based on other projects I've worked on in my life, is absolutely the way to approach almost any given situation. But a lot of these modules, the Argonne Assault one in particular, the first few minutes of the class, you're making a map with texture, with painting textures, and without even knowing what's going on, what's going to come to the map, how is it going to be spaceships, where are they going to be, how fast can they fly, can they turn, what do they shoot, how fast can they shoot, you don't know any of that. And it's like, let's just make a map, we'll make it 1,000 kilometers, because 1,200 kilometers is too big. And you're like, well, but how? What do you mean it's too big? Like, I don't know, compared to what? But anyway, but with this module, we prototype things first, so there are no zombies in this. In fact, I don't know that I would make a zombie shooter game anyway. And after making my version of Argonne Assault, which can be seen on this channel, I kind of like the prototypey look. It wouldn't be this rough and slapdash, but I like the idea of these nondescript robots. I don't think I would use such a fleshed out gun. I think I just pulled this off the asset store for free. But something that looks a little prototypey and fits in with the general way the Argonne Assault version that I made looks, which also is not finished. The intent would be for that as well, as to make various assets in Blender and import them and make things look a little more purposeful, but still kind of prototypey, Portal-esque, I might say. But anyway, so this is just kind of like figuring out how all the systems work, and like all the little things that the instructor is teaching you, like how they fit together, how they can play with each other, like how fast do things move, how aggressive are things, like how much time does the player have to react, that kind of stuff. So these are the enemies, and they just have a little breathing animation, which is, again, just to try out doing that, not necessarily like that's how it would end up being in a final game. But they have a little breathing animation. They are not aggroed, and even if I step forward, you see this one has started, his AI behavior has changed to his aggressive behavior, but there is no nav mesh where I am standing, so he's not going to move until I hit nav mesh starts after this threshold here generally. But if he didn't aggro from me stepping into his like sphere of awareness, which again, we literally did it as a sphere. Like there are spheres, little bubbles surrounding these guys, and if you break that bubble, whether they could see you, whether you're on the other side of a wall, no matter what, they will hunt you down. And the AI that we coded is they will just use the nav mesh and know exactly where you are as soon as you break that sphere. So it's really, AI is the generous term, and their awareness is kind of generous as well. They're facing me just because they're coded to do that. They don't really see me, and there's no like logic for that. So like I'm standing in front of these guys, but they can't see me. These guys will follow me as I move around, but those guys won't. But if I shoot them, they should get aggro. Maybe? No? Nah. They should have. Maybe he is, and I just can't tell it because, yeah, he's vaguely turning with me. Yeah, okay, cool. This, actually, wow, I forgot about that. This actually isn't in the coursework. I had to figure this out on my own. He did it wasn't an aim down sights, but like a zoom in where if you press the right mouse button, it just zooms in the world and you can see a little closer. But found some stuff online and some comments in the class, so he's already starting to move. Are these guys coming after me yet? No. That was able to help me make this into an aim down sight where the iron sights actually line up properly, and where the bullet hits is dead center in the iron sight, which you can see from the particle effect that fires wherever I hit. Okay, so we'll step in here and we'll see these guys are going to start all coming after me. Let's try to get some hits off because I literally might die. They're pretty aggressive. They have like a little attack animation that is all but invisible. Also, I thought I had sounds on this. I guess I don't. I thought they had gun firing sounds, but what are you going to do? Maybe I didn't. Is that it? I guess that's it. There's another one. Yeah, and so you shoot at them, and they start coming at you. But they just take a few shots, and then they die. Let's see. Go this way. There's somebody coming down. Oh, Jesus. Hilarious. I made this, but it's been a couple of months, so I don't really remember. Yeah, and just kind of playing around with things, seeing what weight things had to be was like the idea, and like how to push a player. I wanted to like litter this with like where I was at. We were learning how ammo works, but it hasn't been implemented in this build. How ammo works and how to get ammo to be counted and depleted, and then like maybe have pickups or health and stuff like that. But for right now, it's just infinite ammo, and the player can get through. So I've been playing around with like things like how much do things weigh? Can they break through things? Maybe there's like a puzzle mechanic where you have to get this thing to trigger to roll down or like shoot it or something, just kind of playing around with all that stuff. I have no idea. I feel like there's going to be, I know that, yeah, there's a guy right, ooh, yeah. All right. There's also no health bar. There is health, but it is not outputting to UI. Is there anybody in here? No? Okay, we'll shoot this guy and aggro him. Yeah, there he goes. We'll just let him do his thing. There is health that is depleting, but I can't see it because I didn't tie it to any AI element. So we're just going to try not to take a hit. The guys do like a little forward jump that is really hard to see. I need to add other like, and again, this is super prototype, just so I can figure out what's going on. But I need to add like, they should maybe flash when they get shot so you can tell that you're actually shooting them. And like if they do hit the player, maybe they change. Did I shoot that or did it move on its own? I shot that. Something happened, like maybe the player's gun flashes or the screen edges flash if you get hit so you can tell that you've been hit. But right now they just have like this little lurch forward animation, and their little eyeball thing changes color, but it doesn't really, you don't get a good sense that you're getting hit. But yeah, so I wanted to make this yikes. I even though this is prototype, like I said, my intent would probably be to just clean it up a bit, so it doesn't, it doesn't literally say prototype 256 by 256, whatever. That it still has this like Portal-esque, like futuristic kind of look that is like, bleak and dark and kind of akin to the Argon Assault that I made. And what I ultimately wanted to do as like a thesis project, not that that's required in any way, these courses are really meant for people that are self-starters and self-teachers. Like they give you some fundamentals, but other than following along and doing exactly what the teacher does, you're not going to get much beyond that unless you're the kind of person who wants to like push the boundaries on your own and make your own thing. But I wanted to tie all this together. So like all the modules, including the first like throwaway module you do, which is just an obstacle course maze, but tie it all together. You do an obstacle course maze, and then you do a like another space game where you fly from one pad to the other, and then you do a Star Fox kind of clone that doesn't really feel like Star Fox the way they do it, but it's a rail shooter. And then you do this. There's also a tower defense, which I skipped, and I have to go back to. That was about the point where I just kind of got annoyed, and I was just like, they reference Plants vs. Zombies as they're like giving the intro to the class, I think, and I'm just like, that is not a 3D game. That is a 2D game. Like, don't, like, why? Like, it's good stuff to learn, But like when you think 3D game, you're like, oh, so what are we gonna do? Like an open world survival, like, you know, an RPG, like that stuff's way too complex. But you don't even do the complex stuff in these courses. You like touch on concepts, they leave them unfinished, and he tells you you can go back to them and like finish them. But I'm teaching you the concepts, and then we're going to learn other concepts, and you can apply all the concepts together if you want. So, you know, they even have their own like full RPG class where you can learn how to make an RPG basically from start to finish. I own that as well, but I haven't taken it. You know, if you're not familiar with udemy.com or udemy.com, however they pronounce it, you know, every couple of weeks everything's on sale for like $11. So if you have disposable income and you know, don't mind spending $20 on a hobby for some, you know, a few weekends or maybe a few months. I mean, I've been working on this for months by the time I put it aside, maybe like 2 or 3 months. Because I would do a video and then pause for like a day and just try to explore every way to break what I learned and how far can I take it and whatever. So again, like I had said, if you're a self-starter, a self-teacher, these are certainly really good classes. But yeah, so I wanted to tie them all together, like maybe like narratively, and make it so like you have to like escape the planet that you're on, and so you fight your way to like a car, and that's like the obstacle maze. Is you get in the car and you you know, drive through obstacles that are like falling, the planet's collapsing or whatever, and then like, you know, you get to this level where you have to, you know, first person shooter, fight your way through all of these like robots or whatever they are. Maybe these are aliens that have landed, to get to this spaceship, which is the same spaceship from the Argon Assault video that you can see on my channel. Made this from a Blender class, actually, which is also on Udemy. I have a lot of stuff on Udemy. I like to learn things, so I made that there with the intent of making a bunch of like bug-inspired spaceships. And so that was like kind of like a dragonfly or a housefly or something like that, you know, and maybe just do like some like ladybugs and like locusts or like cicadas or something, whatever. But like you fight your way to this shuttle, and you fly in this shuttle to another shuttle, and maybe end the game with the Project Boost, where you're actually escaping the surface of the planet, which the Project Boost like really catered towards that possible style of gameplay, which I will say the Project Boost is like the crown jewel of that entire class. It is really well thought out, really well presented. It is concise and well explained, and the concepts are really well presented. And one of the ways you can tell this with all of the modules in this class is if you've taken the class, even if you haven't, go to their website and play the other students' games. And, you know, like Argon Assault, like the teacher said he wanted it to be chaotic, but like, I don't know, just the way it's presented and the way they manage it throughout so many of the games, I would say like 99.9% of the students' games, and even his game when he's done with it, is just almost unintelligible, like a lot going on at once, and then the timing is all odd, and it just feels like you're hitting the player with so much. But the Project Boost games, my goodness, they're all good. They're all good. Like, you can go play anybody's game, and they're all like, some are funny because they do their own sound effects, and some are like, you know, serious, and some are exactly what the teacher showed, and some aren't. You know, for mine, I tried to put a spin on it. You're supposed to just be on like kind of a platform and fly between obstacles. I'm just gonna let myself get killed here, and then we'll look at the over. Yeah, so you get swarmed here, and you're kind of supposed to die, was the thought. Just kind of playing around with the idea of like, you can't get out of this. I don't know how I would make that happen, but and like, you know, like you can't get out of this, and if you give in, maybe that takes you to a different level, and if you find hope, that might take you to one of the game modules for my games I called Last Hope, and so that might take you to the Last Hope. And this one was called Edge of Respite. Again, working title, so you don't know what's gonna stick. Yeah. So yeah, so the Project Boost, like all the classes, they're all like fantastic. Oh, that's what I was saying. For mine, I made it, you're supposed to fly from like a platform. You're on like a big platform, and you fly through obstacles, and you land on another platform. If you're not familiar with it, it's just like a side scrolling little space game. And for mine, I wanted it to just kind of play more with gravity and atmosphere. Quickly realized I do not know enough about Unity to really get that across to the player, but still had a ton of fun doing it. And certainly out of any of the stuff, that's what I would come back to. So like with these things, these little enemy guys, they just have this little sphere, and if you break that sphere, they follow their own. They follow just a path. They are programmed to understand the nav mesh. As long as the nav mesh is complete, they will just nonstop. They will not stop coming towards the player until they die or they get blocked in some other way. So they will hunt you down. And we were not really offered any deeper understanding of AI. And that's actually one of the reasons I ended up putting this down. Was while doing these classes, I'm concurrently taking other classes and, trying to expand what I know about stuff that's being taught here. And so I'm taking some C# classes, fundamentals on the side. And C# wasn't really clicking with me throughout the process, but that's not really, it's kind of neither here nor there. It just wasn't. And, in doing all this, one of the things I realized is like, I'm just one person making the stuff, which that's fun. That's part of the hobby. I wanted it to be that way. I'm not trying to make a business out of it. I'm really making games so I can play the games that I want, or at least have fun learning about how the games I might want to make would work. But there's just too much to do. Like even in making a map, like if you wanted to make a maze for a character to go through, like to make a good maze could take you 100 hours of learning how to make good mazes before you made a good maze. Or you can learn a little bit about automation and have the computer make the maze itself. And so I started looking into some of that and taking some classes about algorithms and procedural generation, and ran across, I think it's Al Swigert has a class on Udemy and some books that are freely available, open source, whatever, Creative Commons, for Python. And he has a class, how to automate the boring stuff with Python. And I was going to take that just a couple of hours here and there just to get some familiarity with Python, figuring I also wanted to learn a little bit about machine learning and how it fits into Unity. But immediately, just something about Python just clicked with me. And it was like Charlie Kelly in Always Sunny, when you see him play piano for the first time, like, how are you doing this? He's like, I don't know, man, piano just makes sense to me. There's just like something about Python where like, doing C#, doing quizzes online, taking other classes, it just wasn't really clicking with me. Like I understand it and I can watch over someone else's shoulder and understand what's going on. But if you hand me like a blank IDE and go, do this thing you know how to do because you've already done it, I couldn't do it. I just was having this like weird mental block. But something about Python was just like instantaneously, I was just like, oh, cool. I can just take a blank IDE and I can solve problems. And I can solve problems that I couldn't solve in C# before. I use an app called Solo Learn, which is like the Duolingo of programming. It's just like, it's not going to teach you how to program, but I like it for like quizzing and like keeping your fundamentals up. I do like a couple minutes before I go to bed of just like getting through quizzes. And there were C# quizzes I couldn't solve, but I was like, I bet I could do that in Python. Would head over to the computer and like, bam, knock it out in Python in like 2 seconds. So I did that for like quite a while, put this down for quite a while. And then also my job interrupted my coming back to either of it. And that's actually how this YouTube channel started. Was not having any mental energy to solve problems, but still wanting to experience entertainment, whether it be movies or gameplay, but then wanting to like, at least be somewhat creative, I guess, express myself. But anyway, so there was no intent from the teacher, getting back to this, there's no intent from the teacher to teach you how to make more complex AI subroutines at all. So this was it. It's just somewhat underwhelming. But that was why I started futzing around with making this kind of maze-like where you kind of come in over here and have to work your way through everything. And thinking about how I might force the player to do this into these areas, but we can see like coming through this area before as the player. Whoops. Can I get in there? Yeah, we came through here. We are inside of the awareness radius of this enemy. And so what ends up happening is, while that what might not feel real for the player, it's not going to matter because the player is not going to immediately get attacked because there's all this wall and maze. There's also another like maze area inside of here. I'm sure that's turn offable. There we go. And so these guys get aggroed, and then they have to find their way to the player. So there's like a staggering effect of like, by the time I've gotten through here, I've aggroed these guys, and these guys are just breaking through the wall, like on an average playthrough, or maybe not. Maybe you're speeding through it and like things are going even crazier wrong or whatever. But I left off somewhere about here in terms of like thinking about gameplay and tweaking, and then I just started like dropping things in, figuring I'd make new problems for me to solve, like maybe block this off so you can't see this, and you aggro them as you come through. Maybe you, like, the player might imagine it's because they heard footsteps, but that's not actually the case. And, you know, depending on what feedback you give the player, it may or may not have mattered to the player that they aggroed them for a reason that was not the reason they thought it, you know. And then just kind of exploring with this, like, I wanted the idea of, like, you know, maybe the ship is in here and not here where you can see it, and it feels like that should be your goal, I guess, is like turning this corner and seeing a wide open space and thinking it's over and you've done it, but then realizing like they wouldn't be here, but it was just like to see what a swarm does as I cross this path. But like if it was more fleshed out, you know, maybe they all pile out of an area and you're like, you can't, you're going to get overrun. There's no way to defeat that. And making the player, if I did tie it all together, making the player have to deal with the idea of clicking that button that says give in, right? So maybe it's like, I think I was saying like find hope takes you to the next one or whatever it would be. Like one option makes you do it again, or makes maybe just this last checkpoint happen again. And so you finally go give in, right? And then you're making the player make that decision. Just interesting things I wanted to kind of play around with. But yeah, so that's Zombie Runner. Maybe I'll come back to that class and, like I said, do it as a let's play or a wrap up type thing per module, and just kind of talk about each. But anyway, so yeah, there you go.